The phone rang twice. I didn't recognize the number. At 6:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. I don't answer unknown number scammers love an old woman's voice, but then it rang a third time, and my iPhone screen flashed a Georgia area code. My son's dealer used a Georgia burner. My son's lawyer used a Georgia office. And my son, Michael, used my heart like an ATM with unlimited withdrawals. I answered with my thumbnail, the way Sarah taught me. "This is Margaret, Mom," Michael's voice cracked. From credit lines drying up. "Don't be mad," those 3 words. Don't be mad. The holy trinity of guilt that had moved me to write checks, co-sign loans, and sign a power of attorney in a Savannah hospital room in 2019, while a morphine drip turned my bones to clouds. I'd been drowning in pneumonia fluid, and Michael had leaned close, smelling like cigarettes in desperation, and whispered, "Mom, just in case. For the business. The business. He's business." The Vegas consulting that was really high-stakes baccarat at the Bellagio. The investment opportunities that were really markers held by men with neck tattoos and no patience. I was standing in my Florida kitchen, watching the sun melt into the Gulf like a stick of butter in a hot pan, the same view I'd watched for 34 years from the house I bought with my first franchise profits. The house where Richard proposed with a Cracker Jack ring because we were too broke for diamonds. The house where I'd learned that love wasn't in the ring, but in the man who showed up every morning at 4 a.m. to help me knead dough. "Michael," I said, and I let my voice go flat. The same flat I'd used when a supplier tried to sell me expired beef. "What did you do?" he exhaled. I heard slot machines in the background. Always slot machines. Even in his office. Even in his soul. "I sold the beach house. It's done. 9 a.m. tomorrow. New owners taking possession." The words landed like a stroke. I gripped the Carrara, marble counter-imported from Italy in '92. Back when I had 37 Paddy's Pizza Palaces across the southeast, and could afford to fly stone across the Atlantic just to roll pizza dough on. Something that remembered where it came from. "You sold my house." I wasn't asking. I was performing an autopsy on a relationship that had died years ago, and Michael was finally giving me the cause of death. "Mom, listen." The slot machines got louder. He was calling from the casino floor. He'd sold my house and was gambling the proceeds before the ink dried. "I had a power of attorney. You signed it. Remember, in the hospital. Sarah witnessed it. It's legal. Sarah, my oldest. The one who'd become a pharmaceutical rep and wore Chanel to our last Thanksgiving. The one who'd held my hand while I coughed blood into a tissue and said, 'Sign it, Mom. Michael needs to pay the hospital bills.' I thought she meant my bills. She meant his. I looked at the deed frame on my wall. 1989. Margaret and Richard Carter. Free and clear. I'd paid cash. No mortgage. No liens. No one could take it, except my own son. With a piece of paper I'd signed while dying. "Michael," I whispered, and I let him hear the smile. Not a mother's smile, a businesswoman's smile. The one I'd used when I bought out my partner for pennies on the dollar because he thought I was just the pretty face in the commercials. "Do you know what I was doing while you were in diapers?" "Mom, this isn't the time." I was learning which contracts could be broken, which signatures could be revoked, which sons, I paused, let the silence eat him alive, could be disinherited with a single notarized letter. The slot machine stopped. He'd stepped away from the floor. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the letter I filed with Linda, my lawyer, the day after I left the hospital. The revocation of power of attorney. notarized by a nurse who hated your cigarette smell, filed in Fulton County. You sold a house you had no right to sell. That's bullshit. You're right. I said, and I took a sip of the Pinot Grigio I'd been saving for my 70th birthday. It tasted like oak and vengeance. It is bullshit, but the bullshit is yours. Because the buyer, the man who gave you $400,000 in cash for a house worth $1.2 million. I opened my laptop, pulled up the email. The one from Mr. Chun, my tenant of 6 years. The subject line, finally buying the dream home. Mr. Chun thinks he's buying the house he's been renting from me since 2018. He thinks he's getting a deal. He thinks Sunset Properties LLC is a developer. Michael's breathing went shallow. Sunset Properties is my Nevada holding company. Has been since 2015. You sold my house to me, Michael, through 12 shell corporations you didn't know existed. The money you got, $400,000. It's sitting in an escrow account I control. I let that sink in. You sold my house, and you paid me to do it. I heard something drop. His phone, maybe, or his last shred of dignity. Mom, I have debts. How debts? They'll hurt me. They should. I walked to the deck, barefoot, feeling the salt on the wood Richard had laid with his own hands. Pain is an excellent teacher. I learned it at 22, when my first restaurant burned down and the insurance company called it arson. I learned it when your father died and I had to run a company while planning a funeral. And you, I looked at the moon, full and indifferent. You single quotes about to learn what happens when you mistake a mother's love for a blank check. I hung up, blocked his number. Then I called Linda. It's time, I said. Which one? She asked. She'd been waiting for this call since 2019. All of them. I looked at my kitchen, at the wine, at the deed on the wall that was now, officially, worthless paper. Michael thought he'd sold my house. He'd only sold his right to be my son. And tomorrow at 9 a.m., when Mr. Chun arrived with his family to see his new home, I'd be there with fresh-baked cookies and a story about how sometimes the universe gives you the family you deserve. But tonight, I had something more important to do. I walked to my bedroom, opened the safe behind the watercolor Richard painted of our first restaurant. Inside, 12 deeds, 12 keys. 12 rental properties my children knew nothing about. I'd been poor at 22. I'd been rich at 40. I'd been widowed at 55. And now, at 69, I was about to become something else. A ghost in my own life. A phantom they couldn't touch. A mother who'd prepared for this exact moment while they were too busy cashing checks to notice she was writing the invoices. The phone rang again. Sarah, then Jennifer, then Michael from a different number. I didn't answer. Instead, I poured another glass of wine, walked to the deck, and watched the tide come in. The ocean never betrays you. It just keeps taking, and taking, and taking until you learn to build your house on stone instead of sand. My house was on stone. My son was on sand. And the tide was coming. The Georgia farmhouse didn't feel like home until I'd lived there alone for 3 years. That's when the silence stopped being an accusation and became an asset. Silence, I'd learned, was where the truth went to hide and where I went to find it. I left Florida at 4:17 a.m. before the sun could embarrass me with beauty. Drove my 2014 Toyota Camry, the car Michael mocked as a granny mobile, not knowing I'd bought it cash from a police auction and that it had once belonged to a state senator who'd gone to prison for bribery. The irony tasted like truck stop coffee. Bitter, necessary, and kept me awake for the 7-hour drive north. The farmhouse sat on 40 acres in Lumpkin County. Bought in 1996 for $89,000 cash from a farmer who'd lost his wife and his will to live. I told the kids it was a weekend retreat. In reality, it was a vault. The land was worthless for development zoned agricultural, no water rights, soil that grew rocks better than corn. But the basement was deep, poured concrete, and the safe behind the old freezer weighed 400 pounds. I'd had it installed in 2016. The year my doctor told me the forgetfulness wasn't just stress, it was early-stage Alzheimer's. I didn't tell the children. They'd have used it as leverage. Instead, I used it as motivation. The key was in my jewelry box. Not the diamond earrings Sarah asked about every visit, Mom. Those must be worth a fortune. You should insure them properly. Not the Rolex Jennifer admired vintage, right? Very collectible now. The key was threaded onto a gold chain Richard gave me in 1975. When Patty's Pizza Palace was still a single storefront in Savannah's historic district, and our combined net worth was $4,200, I unlocked the safe by feel. The numbers Richard's birthday, reverse, were etched in my muscle memory deeper than my children's faces. Inside, 12 manila envelopes, each one labeled with a property address. Ana Maria Beach House, Savannah Duplex, Atlanta Triplex, Augusta Student Housing. Each deed bore a single name: Margaret Elizabeth Carter, trustee of the Carter Dynasty Trust. I'd created the trust in 2015. The day I sold the last Patty's Pizza Palace to a private equity firm for $4.1 million. The children thought I'd netted $1 million after taxes. They thought I'd put it in mutual funds. They thought I'd be a good little widow and live off the interest and leave them the principal when I died. They thought wrong. Linda had set it up. Linda Pierce, my attorney since 1987, when she'd been a paralegal in my divorce proceedings and I'd seen something in her, a hunger, a precision that reminded me of myself at that age. She'd passed the bar on her 5th try, and I'd paid her tuition, not a loan, an investment. Linda understood that family was a liability, not an asset. My phone rang as I pulled the first envelope. Linda's name flashed. "You're in Georgia," she said. Not a question. She had a GPS tracker on my phone. I'd asked her to install it after Michael borrowed my car for a job interview in 2020, and I found it 5 days later in the driveway of a woman I'd never met, with a crack pipe in the glove compartment. "You told me to call when Michael made his move," I said, sliding out the beach house deed. It was older than his marriage. Older than his daughter, Lily. He sold it, $400,000, to Mr. Chun. Linda made a sound like a cat coughing up a hairball. 400. It's worth 1.2. Even in cash. That's felony-level undervaluation. He'll do time for this. That's not the plan. I spoke the way I'd spoken to suppliers who tried to short me on pepperoni. Flat. Final. I don't want him in prison. I want him in purgatory, Margaret. Linda warned. She'd heard this tone before. You're not a young woman. Your diagnosis is my business. I laid the deed flat on the old oak table Richard had built. The table where we'd taught Sarah her multiplication tables, where Michael had carved his initials, where Jennifer had cried when her fiancé left her for her best friend. And I'd held her hand and said, "Never trust anyone who wants something you own." She hadn't listened. They never did. "The revocation of power of attorney is filed and notarized," Linda said. "I have the original, dated January 14th, 2019. The day after you signed their version." Nurse Martinez witnessed. She remembers Michael's cologne. "Smelled like a bouncer at a strip club," she said. I smiled. Nurse Martinez had changed my bedpan when Michael was too busy flirting with the receptionist. She'd seen his eyes scan my chart for assets. And the recordings? I asked. Legal in Florida. One-party consent. I have 3 calls where Michael discusses the sale with the realtor. One where Sarah asks about her share of the proceeds. Classic conspiracy. I opened the second envelope. The Savannah duplex. Bought 2017 for $220,000, now worth $450,000. Rented to a young couple, both doctors at Memorial. They'd never missed a payment. Didn't know their landlady was a woman whose son sold her legacy for blackjack chips. Sarah's involvement, I said. How deep? Deep enough to drown. Linda's voice hardened. She'd never liked Sarah, called her vulture in Laubautens. She recommended the realtor. Introduced Michael to the title company. Took a consulting fee of $15,000. It's in the Venmo. Memo. Mom's house sale coordination. My chest tightened. Not heartbreak. Angina. The doctor had given me nitroglycerin pills. I took one, let it dissolve under my tongue. The bitter taste was a reminder. My own body was betraying me. Why should my children be any different? Jennifer? I asked. Clean. As usual. Checked out. Too busy with her yoga studio in Boulder. Linda's voice softened. She called me last month. Asked if you were okay. I think she suspects. Jennifer always had intuition, I said. She just never had the courage to act on it. I pulled the third envelope. The Atlanta triplex. Section 8 housing. I'd bought it as a tax write-off, but the single mothers who lived there reminded me of myself at 22. Pregnant with Sarah, living above a laundromat, with Richard working 3 jobs. I charged them $300 a month. Market rate was $1,200. The difference. I called it the karma payment. Margaret, Linda said, we need to move fast. Michael's markers are due Friday. He's in deep with the Tangiers group. That's not a casino. That's a family. And they don't break kneecaps anymore. They break families. I smiled at the irony. Michael had already broken his. Thursday, I said. We'll file the injunction Thursday. He'll think he has until Friday. He'll be desperate. You're enjoying this, Linda said. It wasn't an accusation. It was an observation. I'm avenging my husband, I said. Richard worked himself to death for this family. He died, thinking his children were good people. I'm correcting the record. I pulled the 4th envelope. Inside, a photograph. Michael, age 12, holding a trophy. Little League. He'd hit a home run. I'd missed it because the restaurant had a health inspection. He'd never forgiven me, not for missing the game. For succeeding when he failed. One more thing, Linda said. Lily. She's been calling my office. Left 3 voicemails. She knows something's wrong. My breath caught. Lily, 19, Michael's daughter. The only one who visited last Christmas. Brought homemade sugar cookies with frosting that smeared. Sat on this very floor, cross-legged, and asked me about the Patty's Pizza days. Did you really deliver pizzas yourself when you were pregnant with Dad? She'd asked. I told her about the night I went into labor mid-delivery, finished the route, then drove myself to the hospital. She'd looked at me like I was a superhero. Her father looked at me like I was an ATM. She's clean, I said. Not involved. She's scared. Living in that studio apartment Michael pays for. The one in his name. She's 3 months behind on rent. He stopped paying. Told her to figure it out. You're an adult. I closed my eyes. The nitroglycerin was working. My chest loosened. My resolve hardened. At a codicil, I said. The Savannah duplex. Transfer it to Lily. No conditions. Just Give her a place. Linda was quiet. That's $450,000 in equity. She's worth more. I hung up and opened the last envelope. Inside, not a deed, a USB drive. Labeled in my shaky handwriting, for when they sell the house. I plugged it into my laptop. The video file was dated January 13th, 2019, the day I'd signed Michael's fraudulent power of attorney. Nurse Martinez had recorded it on her phone. Achimai, request. I tucked a $100 bill in her pocket and whispered, just in case my son gets ideas. The video played. My face, pale, oxygen cannula in my nose. Michael leaning over the bed, power of attorney in hand, pen ready. Sarah by the window, checking her reflection in the glass. Me, signing. Then me, reaching under the pillow, pulling out a second document. Me, signing that one too. Me, looking directly into the camera and saying, "This is Margaret Carter, of sound mind and aching heart. Revoking any and all powers of attorney granted to my son Michael Carter. Effective 12 hours after signature, witnessed by my nurse and my conscience." The screen went black. I sat in the silence of the Georgia basement, surrounded by the empire I'd built in secret. 12 properties, $3.7 million in equity. All mine. Michael thought he'd sold my beach house. He'd sold his future, and I had the receipts. The phone rang again. Sarah. I let it go to voicemail. Then I listened to the message. Her voice, polished, professional, poisoned. "Mom, Michael told me about the house. I'm sure it's a misunderstanding. Let's talk. Maybe we can work something out. For the family." I deleted it. Then I texted her, "The family you sold for $15,000. I'll think about it." I turned off my phone. Walked upstairs. The farmhouse was dark, but I didn't need lights. I'd memorized these walls, these floors, these failures. Tomorrow, I'd drive back to Florida, not to pack, to evict my son. I arrived at the Florida house at 8:57 a.m., not 9 o'clock, 3 minutes early. Because punctuality is the first language of power, and I wanted Michael to hear me before he saw me. The Camry's engine ticked as it cooled in the driveway, my driveway, though the fresh paint on the curb read "No packing, new owner" in letters, still wet enough to smear. The house looked the same from the outside. Same weathered cedar, shingles Richard had insisted on, even though vinyl was cheaper. Same porch swing where I'd nursed all 3 children through chickenpox. Measles, and broken hearts that seemed catastrophic then but were mere paper cuts compared to the machete wound Michael had carved into my back. But the energy had shifted. A U-Haul truck idled in the side yard, its rear door open like a hungry mouth. Not my truck. Michael's, the one he'd borrowed when he moved out at 22. Promising to return it filled with success instead of the empty boxes of his failures. I stepped onto the porch. Through the front window, I saw him, Michael, my son, carrying a box labeled Mom's Kitchen in Sharpie. His movements were frantic, desperate the same way he'd moved at 8 years old. Trying to hide a report card before I got home from the restaurant. I didn't knock, I used my key. The lock clicked. Michael froze, box in hand. His eyes met mine. They were red-rimmed, sleepless. Good. Let him suffer the insomnia I'd swallowed for years. "Mom," the box slipped. Plates. Inside clinked like accusations. "You're not supposed to be here." The new owner is sitting in his car across the street, wondering why the tenant hasn't vacated. I closed the door behind me, locked it. The sound was final. "Mr. Chun, lovely man." His daughter was valedictorian at Sarasota High. He pays rent on time. Always has. Michael's mouth opened, closed. He looked like a fish I'd once seen in a market in Savannah, gasping on ice, not yet understanding it was already dead. I don't, he started, stopped, looked at the box in his hands like it might contain answers. Mom, the closing was yesterday. The money's already in escrow. I walked past him into the kitchen, set my purse on the counter. The marble was cold. My escrow account. For Sunset Properties LLC, which, as of 2015, is the sole owner of this property. I pulled a document from my purse. The deed, fresh, recorded in Sarasota County on September 11th, 2024, yesterday. While Michael was celebrating his sale at a craps table. This says Margaret Carter, he whispered, scanning it. Not Sunset Properties. Turn the page. He did. The second page, quitclaim deed, from Sunset Properties LLC to Margaret Elizabeth Carter, trustee of the Carter Dynasty Trust, for consideration of love and loyalty. Payment, $0. His hands shook. The box dropped, plates shattered. The sound was satisfying, like a bankruptcy gavel falling. You can't, he started, but his voice lacked conviction. It lacked everything but fear. I can. I pulled a second document, the revocation, the nurse's signature, the video file on a USB drive I now placed on the counter like a loaded gun. You committed felony fraud, Michael, multiple counts. You signed my name. You forged a power of attorney. You sold property you didn't own. That's 20 years in state prison. Not county, state. His knees buckled. He caught himself on the counter, the same counter where he'd learned to roll pizza dough at 7. Back when he still wanted to be like his mom. Mom, please. The word was ash in his mouth. The Tangiers Group. They have markers. $847,000. They said if I don't pay by Friday, they'll what? I poured myself a glass of water from the tap. The taste was metallic. Real. Break your legs. Fire you. Michael, you're 4-7 with a GED and a gambling addiction. They can't take anything you haven't already stolen. They'll hurt Lily. The words came out like a confession. They know where she lives. That studio in Tampa. I put it up as collateral. My hand stopped mid-sip. The glass trembled. Not from age. From fury, you used your daughter as collateral. I set the glass down slowly, because if I didn't, I'd throw it. You piece of shit. You used a 19-year-old girl who works double shifts at Starbucks to pay for community college. She didn't know, but you did. I stepped closer. He flinched. Good. Let him fear his mother. Let him understand that the woman who'd wiped his bottom could also wipe his existence from legal records. That's the difference between us, Michael. I build things, you burn them. And then you wonder why you're cold. A car door slammed outside. Michael's head whipped toward the window. Mr. Chun, a small man in a large sedan, squinting at the house like it might disappear if he blinked. That's your buyer, I said. He thinks he's buying his rental. He thinks he's getting a deal. He's going to knock in 3 minutes, and you know what I'm going to do. Michael shook his head. He couldn't speak. His throat had closed around his future. I'm going to invite him in, offer him coffee, and show him the lease. He's been signing for 6 years. The lease, with my signature, the one that says this house is not for sale. Never was. That you, Michael Carter, were acting as property manager. Collecting rent, skimming, embezzling $3,500 a month for 3 years. The color drained from his face. You knew? I knew the day you bought the BMW. I opened the cabinet, pulled out 3 mugs. Mr. Chun's daughter liked hot chocolate. I'd bought it for her. I knew when Sarah asked about her consulting fee. I knew when Jennifer called to say you'd asked her to invest in a Vegas opportunity. The knock came, gentle. A tenant's knock, not an owner's. Michael's eyes were wild. Mom, I can fix this. I can get the money back. I can what? I opened the door before he could answer. Can sell the other 11 properties I own. Can forge Sarah's name on a loan. Can mortgage Lily's future a second time. Mr. Chun stood on the porch, smiling nervously. He held a bouquet of grocery store flowers. Mrs. Carter, I hope it's okay, the realtor said 9 sharp. I brought these for the new house. I took the flowers, stepped aside. Come in, Mr. Chun, meet my son. He's just leaving. Michael's mouth opened, closed. He looked at Mr. Chun, at me, at the shattered plates on the floor, his life, in pieces. I don't understand, Mr. Chun said, looking at Michael. You're the property manager. You said the owner was eager to sell. I was eager, I said, pouring hot water into a mug, to see if my son was stupid enough to complete the transaction. Michael made a sound like a wounded animal. I recognized it. It was the sound he'd made at 6, when he'd realized I wouldn't buy him the expensive sneakers, because the restaurant needed a new oven. It was the sound of a child learning that love has limits. He grabbed his phone. I'm calling Sarah. Do. I set the mug in front of Mr. Chun. She's on speakerphone in my car. Been there since 8:30, listening to everything. From the driveway, a voice crackled. Sarah. Mom, you bitch. I smiled at Mr. Chun. He looked terrified. Good. Let him see what kind of woman he'd been renting from. Let him understand that Sunset Properties weren't just a name. They were a warning, Mr. Chun, I said, pulling out the lease. This is your rental agreement. Signed 2018. Notice the landlord. Sunset Properties, no proper Mikael Carter. Notice the clause. Under no circumstances may the property manager sell, transfer, or encumber the property. Michael's phone rang. Not Sarah, a Vegas number. He looked at it like it was a snake. Answer it, I said. It's probably the Tangiers Group, wondering where their money is. He didn't. It went to voicemail. Then another ring. Then another. Mom, please. He was crying now, ugly tears. The tears of a man who'd run out of lies. They'll hurt Lily. I looked at Mr. Chun. He was frozen, mug halfway to his lips. Mr. Chun, would you give us a moment? He stood, spilling hot chocolate on his shirt. Of course. I'll wait in the car. He left. The door closed. Silence returned like an old friend. I walked to Michael, put my hand on his cheek. The same cheek I'd kissed when he was born. The same cheek I'd slapped when he was 17 and called me a bitch for not giving him money for prom. The same cheek now covered in the stubble of a man who'd never grown up. You want to save Lily? I asked. He nodded, unable to speak. Then you will do exactly what I say. Not because you're my son, but because you're her father. And for the first time in your life, you're going to act like it. I pulled a document from my purse. Not legal, personal, a list. First, you will sign a confession, notarized, admitting to fraud, forgery, and theft. Linda has it ready. Mom, second, you will transfer every asset you have left, including that BMW to Lily's name, tonight. I can't. Third, you will enter rehab, not the celebrity kind, the court-ordered kind. 6 months inpatient. You will piss clean every day. You will attend Gamblers Anonymous. You will get a GED tutor. That's fourth. You will never contact me again. Not for money, not for forgiveness, not for a kidney. I am dead to you. And you are dead to me. The only person you will call is Lily, once a week, to ask how she is, not to ask for money. To ask how her heart is. The tears were streaming now. He was broken good. Broken can be rebuilt. Whole and rotten cannot. And fifth, I said, pulling the final document. A check. You will take this. It's $847,000, made out to the Tangiers Group. It's my money, not yours. You will deliver it personally. You will apologize. You will never gamble again. He stared at the check. Why? Because Lily's father isn't a coward. Because her grandmother won't let her be collateral. Because, I paused, let the words settle like dust. Because despite everything, I still remember the boy who hit that home run. Who had potential. Who had a soul. I put the check in his hand. You have 24 hours. Then Linda files charges. The confession protects Lily. The money protects Lily. Your sobriety protects Lily. He looked at the check. At me. At the shattered plates. Mom, I don't deserve. You don't. I walked to the door. Opened it. But Lily does. Now get out of my house. Your lease is up. He left. Walking like a man in a minefield. Mr. Chun watched from his car, confused, as Michael drove away in the U-Haul, leaving his box of Mom's kitchen on the curb. I poured myself another glass of water. Spiked it with wine. The sun was fully up now, painting the house gold. My phone rang Linda. He signed the confession, just emailed it. You were right. He's scared. Good. I watched Michael's taillights disappear. Fear is a better motivator than love. At least for him. And Lily. She gets the Savannah duplex. Tomorrow. No strings. She can sell it, live in it, burn it. Her choice. And you. I looked at the house. At the life I'd built in secret. I have 11 more properties. And 3 children fewer. I hung up. Mr. Chun knocked again, tentative. Mrs. Carter, is everything okay? I opened the door, smiled, real this time. Everything is perfect, Mr. Chun. Your lease is extended another year. Same rent. Would you like some cookies? He smiled, relieved. My daughter loves your cookies. Then let's bake some. I stepped aside. And I'll tell you about the time I built an empire while my children were too busy spending it to notice. As we walked to the kitchen, I looked at the broken plates on the floor. Some things break clean, some things break forever. Michael was already broken. Now, I had to decide if I wanted to watch him drown or throw him a rope made of conditions. I chose the rope. But I kept the deed. The Tangiers Group didn't have an office. They had a booth at the Bellagio, a suite at the Cosmopolitan, and a reputation that made the Nevada Gaming Commission nervous. I'd done my research. In 2020, when Michael first mentioned investors, I'd hired a private investigator. Cost me $12,000, best money I'd ever spent. Linda met me at the Savannah airport. She'd flown in from Atlanta, briefcase in hand, Laubautens clicking on the terminal floor. She looked like Sarah wanted to look, powerful, precise, unapologetic. He delivered the check, she said, personal. Handed it to a man named Vincent Romano, took a photo, and Vincent tore it up. Said interest accrued, new total, $1.2 million. My chest tightened, not angina this time, pure, crystalline rage. He wants me to pay for Michael's mistakes. He wants to make an example, Linda clarified. Margaret, These people don't negotiate. They take. Then we take first. I'd spent the flight from Sarasota reading Michael's confession. 47 pages. Typed. Signed. Notarized at a FedEx in Tampa at 11:47 p.m. the night before. He must have typed for hours, fingers cramping, each word a nail in his own coffin. He admitted to forging my signature on 3 separate documents. To selling property he didn't own. To embezzling $126,000 in rental income over 3 years. To using his daughter's apartment as collateral without her knowledge. It was enough for felony charges. Enough for 10 years. Enough to lose his parental rights if Lily wanted to pursue it, but it wasn't enough for the 10 years. They want the beach house, Linda said, as we drove to the Savannah duplex. Vincent called me personally, said the old lady's got assets. We take assets. They can't. I stared out the window at the Spanish moss. The house is in the trust. Protected. Trust can be broken. Linda's voice was careful, with the right pressure. They could sue. Claim fraudulent transfer. Tie it up for years. Force you to settle. Or Michael could work it off. They have opportunities. Collection work. Enforcement. She didn't need to elaborate. I'd seen Goodfellas. I knew what opportunities meant. Show me the duplex. Lily opened the door on the 3rd knock. She looked smaller than I remembered. 19, and already carrying the weight of a father who saw her as collateral. Her studio apartment was a cardboard box with plumbing, Murphy bed, hot plate, a window that faced a brick wall. She wore a Starbucks apron, still stained from the morning shift. Grandma. She blinked. What are you? Can we come in? She stepped aside. Linda's heels clicked on the linoleum. I could see her assessing. $400 a month in rent. Maybe. The place smelled of ramen and Hope dying quietly. Lily, I said, sitting on the bed. It creaked. Your father came to see you. Her face closed like a fist. He asked for my lease. Said he needed it for something. He put it up as collateral. Linda spoke gently. For a gambling debt. Lily didn't cry. She just nodded. Like this was normal. Like this was expected. He sold my childhood home, didn't he? The beach house. He tried, I said. He failed. She looked at me. Really looked. For the first time, I saw Richard in her eyes. The quiet strength. The ability to absorb a blow without flinching. What do I do? You have 2 choices. I pulled the deed for the Savannah duplex. You can let him destroy you. Or you can let me save you. There's always a cost, she whispered. With Dad. With the family. There's always a cost. Not with me. I placed the deed in her hands. This is yours free. Clear. No mortgage. The rent from the downstairs unit covers taxes and insurance. You live upstairs. You go to college. You get out. Her hands shook. Why? Because someone in this family needs to win. I stood. And it's not going to be Michael. She signed the transfer papers with a Starbucks pen. Her signature was shaky but final. When she looked up, tears finally came. Grandma, I don't know how to be a landlord. You'll learn. I kissed her forehead. Just like I learned. One eviction notice at a time. Linda's phone rang. She stepped into the hallway. When she returned, her face was pale. Vincent's in Savannah. The words hung like a guillotine blade. What? I stood. My knees protested, but my spine didn't. He's here. At the mansion on Forsyth Park, Suite 601. He wants to meet. Tonight. Tell him no. I tried. Linda's voice was flat. He said the old lady doesn't get a choice. She gets a conversation. I looked at Lily. She was clutching the deed like a shield. Go to work, I told her. Don't come back here tonight. Go to Linda's office. Sleep on the couch. Take the deed with you. Grandma, now, she left. Linda, and I stood in the empty apartment, the silence ringing. He's going to threaten you, Linda said. Let him. Margaret, these people are businessmen. I walked to the window, looked at the brick wall. And I'm a businesswoman. Get me a meeting. But not at his hotel, at Patty's. Patty's Pizza Palace. Linda's eyebrows rose. The one on Broughton Street. The one I kept. I'd told the children I'd sold all 37 locations. In truth, I'd kept one, the original. The hole in the wall where Richard and I had started. It was a tax write-off. A memory palace. And, as of today, a battleground. The Mine Policial Militar Vincent Romano 53, Crangres, a penthouse at the Bellagio. Net worth, estimated $14 million, all cash. Criminal record, sealed. Reputation, unbreakable. I arrived at 8:30. The restaurant was closed on Tuesdays. I used my same key from 1978. Copied so many times the grooves were worn smooth. I turned on the lights. I made dough, not for show, for centering. The flour on my hands, the yeast smell, the rhythm of kneading it was meditation. It was memory. It was the feeling of being 22 and pregnant, and sure that if I just worked hard enough, loved hard enough, my children would be proud. The door opened at 9:03. Vincent was shorter than I expected, 5'8", built like a fire hydrant. He wore a suit that probably cost more than my first car, but his shoes were scuffed. He didn't care about appearances. He cared about assets. Mrs. Carter. His voice was gravel and cigarettes. You're smaller than I thought. You're less intimidating than I expected. He smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Michael's a good kid. He's a 4 to 7-year-old thief. He's in over his head. So are you. I slid a pizza across the counter, fresh from the oven. Try it. It's famous. He took a slice, bit, chewed. Nodded. Good. The sauce is a secret recipe. Took me 15 years to perfect. Know what's in it. He waited. Nothing. I smiled. It's just tomatoes, garlic, and thyme. People think it's magic. It's just patience. What do you want, Mrs. Carter? I want my son's debt erased. 1.2 million. I'll give you for 100. The amount he actually received. The rest is interest. Your tax on stupidity. Vincent laughed. A real laugh. Guttural. You're funny. I'm serious. He owes us. He owes you nothing. He signed markers while intoxicated, under duress. That's not enforceable. In Nevada, it is. In federal court, it's not. I pulled a document. This is a RICO complaint, filed in the Southern District of Georgia. Names the Tangiers Group, its principles, and its enforcement methods. I have recordings, video, witnesses, including a cocktail waitress who saw your associate break a man's fingers in the parking lot in 2022. Vincent stopped chewing. She's willing to testify. For a price. A green card. She's Canadian. Overstayed her visa. You can make that happen. Or I can make your life very complicated. The silence stretched. I could hear the oven cooling, the drip of a faucet, the beat of my own heart irregular but strong. You think you can take us on? Vincent asked. I think I already have. I pushed another document. This is a purchase agreement for the Tangiers Group's legitimate holdings. Your restaurant supply business. The one that launders your cash. His face changed. The mask slipped. How did you? I own 12 rental properties. I buy supplies in bulk. Your company quoted me last month. Very competitive prices. Almost too competitive. I leaned forward. I don't care about your gambling operation. I care about my son. You will take the 400,000. You will tear up the markers. You will leave Michael alone. And you will give Lily a job in your supply office. Legitimate. Benefits. 925. Why would I do that? Because if you don't, I'll have the IRS audit your supply chain. I'll have ICE deport your Canadian witness after she testifies. I'll have the Nevada Gaming Commission freeze your assets. I paused. And I'll have my lawyer file a civil suit that will tie you up for 10 years. You're 53, Mr. Romano. Do you have 10 years? He looked at the pizza, at the restaurant, at me. You're a tough old broad. I'm a mother. I stood. There's a difference. A tough broad protects herself. A mother protects her own even from themselves. He took the 400,000 check, folded it. The markers are torn. As of midnight, the girl gets a job, starting Monday, and Michael is dead to us. Vincent stood. But Mrs. Carter, if he comes back to Vegas, he's not your problem anymore. He's dessert fertilizer. I'll tell him. He left. The doorbell jangled. The sound was cheap, cheerful. I locked the door, turned off the lights. Sat in the dark restaurant where I'd built an empire, while my children were too busy spending it to notice. My phone buzzed. Linda. Well. He took it. Jesus. Margaret. Don't blaspheme. We're in a pizza parlor. She laughed. The sound was tired. What's next? Next, we deal with Sarah. She's lawyered up. Hired some hotshot from Atlanta. He's threatening to sue you for intentional infliction of emotional distress. Let him. I stood, locked the door. I'll inflict some more. I drove back to the Savannah duplex. Lily was there, showed her menko like a sentinel. She'd changed into jeans and a t-shirt, no apron. She looked younger, freer. He signed. She asked. He signed. The debt? Gone. She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for a decade. Why? Because you're worth more than a casino's profit margin. I handed her a key. The upstairs new home. I already moved your stuff. You what? I had movers. While you were at work, I smiled. They said you have very heavy textbooks. Criminal justice, I think. Planning to be a lawyer. She nodded, tears falling. Good. I'll need one in the family I can trust. We stood on the porch of the duplex. The Savannah air was thick with humidity and the smell of azaleas. In the distance, church bells rang. It was Wednesday, not special. Just a day. But it was the day I took back my life. My phone buzzed. Sarah. Again. I answered. Mom, we need to talk. Do we? Hi. And Sarah. Silence. Then, Lily. Honey, this is between me and your grandmother. No, Lily said, and her voice was steel. It's between you and the woman who just saved my life. So if you have something to say it to both of us. I could hear Sarah's brain calculating. The risk, the reward. The optics of suing her mother, while her niece stood witness. I'll call back, Sarah said, and hung up. Lily looked at me. Will she? No. I walked to the car. She sent a letter. Certified. Very formal. Very threatening. What will you do? I opened the car door. I'll frame it. And then I'll file a countersuit for conspiracy to commit fraud. Grandma? Lily called as I started the engine. Are you okay? I looked at the house. At the deed in her hands. At the future I just bought her. I'm perfect, I said. For the first time in 40 years, I drove north. Back to Georgia, back to the basement. Back to the safe that held the secrets my children thought they'd sold. But I wasn't running away. I was reloading. Sarah sent the letter. It arrived Friday morning, as predicted, certified, cream-colored paper, watermarked, the kind of stationery that screams I paid $12 an envelope to intimidate you. I received it at the Georgia farmhouse, sitting on the porch with Frank the seagull, who'd somehow followed me from Florida. Either that, or all seagulls look alike, and I'm projecting loyalty onto a bird that just wants my saltine crackers. The letter was from Dewberry and Associates. Preston Dewberry, ESQ. I'd heard of him. He specialized in high-net-worth family disputes, which meant he helped rich kids steal from their parents and called it fiduciary optimization. Dear Ms. Carter, it has come to our attention that you have engaged in a systematic campaign of emotional manipulation and financial entrapment designed to deprive your children, Sarah Carter, Jennifer Carter, and Michael Carter, of their rightful inheritance and emotional well-being. Specifically, we allege 1. Intentional infliction of emotional distress, causing Sarah Carter severe anxiety and loss of income. 2. Fraudulent transfer of assets to a shell corporation, Sunset Properties LLC, with the intent to defraud legitimate heirs. 3. Undue influence in the revocation of a valid power of attorney, executed while you were under medical duress. 4. Defamation, for implying to third parties, including but not limited to Mr. Chun and the Tangiers Group, that Michael Carter is a criminal. We demand immediate cessation of these activities, transfer of all properties to a jointly held family trust, and compensatory damages in the amount of $2.4 million. Should you fail to comply within 10 business days, we will file suit and seek punitive damages. Sincerely, Preston Dewberry, ESQ. I read it twice. Then I laughed. Frank squawked, startled. Emotional entrapment, I said to the bird. That's a new one. I called Linda. She was already at her office, despite it being 7:15 a.m. I was waiting for this, she said. Preston Dewberry is Sarah's new boyfriend. They've been dating for 6 months. She paid his retainer with a cashier's check from her consulting business, which is what? A shell, no revenue. Just a way to launder the $15,000 Michael gave her for the beach house sale. I poured coffee. The sun was still rising. She's sleeping with her lawyer. Technically, he's representing all 3 of them. Michael and Jennifer have signed retainer agreements. Joint representation. Conflict of interest. Only if we can prove she's paying the bills conquileptos Martinez. She saw Sarah give Michael the realtor's number. She heard Sarah say 15% commission. I have it on video. The video from the hospital. The video from the parking lot. I had a pie follow her. Same day as the beach house closing, she met the realtor at a Starbucks. Gave her an envelope. Linda was quiet. You were planning this. Since 2019 sitlajčiti. When you have children who see you as a bank, you learn to keep receipts. What's the move? Family dinner. Margaret, I'm hosting. Sunday, 6 p.m. Here, the farmhouse. You come too. Bring the confession. Bring the video. Bring the receipts. And what? And we settle. I hung up. Texted the group chat I'd created in 2020 Carter family updates, which they'd muted in 2021. The message was simple. Dinner. Sunday. Georgia house. 6 p.m. Attendance mandatory. Linda will send formal invitation. Non-attendance will be noted by the court. Sarah responded first. We'll be there. With counsel. Jennifer. I'll try. Yoga workshopy, but I'll call in. Michael Mom, please, we just talk. I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I called Lily. Grandma. Pack your bag. You're coming to dinner. Mom said I'm not welcome. Your mother isn't invited. Lily arrived Sunday at 3 p.m. She'd cut her hair. Lost your weight. Looked more like Richard than ever. She carried a duffel bag and a nervous smile. They're going to gang up on you, she said. They're going to try. The farmhouse smelled of roast beef and rosemary. I'd cooked all day. Not for them. For me. The kitchen was my courtroom. The dining room, my battlefield. I set the table with Richard's mother's china. The china Sarah had asked about inheriting at Thanksgiving. I put out the silver Michael had tried to pawn in 2021. I lit candles Jennifer had given me for Mother's Day, the year she forgot, and ordered them on Amazon Prime the day of. At 5:55 p.m., the doorbell rang. Linda answered. Sarah entered first. Preston Dewberry at her side, looking like a man who'd paid too much for his suit and not enough for his soul. Jennifer followed, in yoga pants and a face that said she'd rather be anywhere else. Michael came last. He'd shaved, wore a tie. Looked like a boy playing dress-up, in his father's clothes. Mom, he said. Can we talk before? No. I pointed to the chairs. Sit. They sat. Sarah, in her usual spot, the power seat at the head of the table, except I'd removed the head chair, replaced it with a bench. No one sits at the head of this table but memory. Linda placed a folder at each setting. Thick, manila, red tabs. These, I said, are your futures. Choose wisely. Sarah opened hers first. Inside, the video stills. Her at Starbucks. The envelope. The realtor's face. Her text messages to Michael. Make sure Mom's out by 9. I need my cut fast. The Venmo receipt. The memo. Beach House Commission. Her face went white. Jennifer's folder. Bank statements. Michael had transferred $30,000 from my account using the forged POA to her yoga studio. She'd accepted it. Signed a receipt. The money was gone. Spent on Pelotons and kombucha taps. I didn't know. Jennifer whispered. He said it was a loan. From you. He lied. Linda said. You signed a receipt. That's conspiracy. Michael's folder was thickest. The confession, the video, the recordings of his calls to the Tangiers. The marcas. The threats against Lily. The forged POA. The embezzlement. He didn't open it. He just looked at me. Mom, please, don't mom me. I stood. You lost that right when you sold my house, while I was alive. Sarah slammed her hand on the table. This is entrapment. This is dinner. I serve the roast beef. Eat while you can. Preston Dewberry cleared his throat. Mrs. Carter, my clients. Your client is a woman who conspired to commit felony fraud. Your other client is a man who committed it. And your third client accepted stolen funds. I looked at him. You're representing a conspiracy. That's RICO. You could lose your license. He paled. You can't, I can. Linda slid a document across. This is a proffer. Immunity for Jennifer. She cooperates. She walks. No charges. No civil liability. Jennifer looked up. What do I have to do? Testify. Against Sarah and Michael. In detail. Sarah stood. You can't do this. I can. I carved the roast. And I will. Unless. Unless what? Michael asked. Unless you sign. I pulled 3 more documents. These are deeds. transferring all interest present and future in my estate to Lily. Sarah laughed. You can't disinherit us. I can. I pushed the papers forward. Georgia law allows it. You sign. You walk away. No charges. No jail. Just nothing. No inheritance. No contact. No more family. And if we don't? Sarah's voice was acid. Then Linda files the criminal complaint tomorrow. Michael does 10 years. Sarah does 5. Jennifer gets 2. Suspended. With cooperation. I looked at each of them. You chose to steal from me. Now you choose your punishment. They were quiet. The candles flickered. The roast grew cold. Jennifer signed first. Quick. Desperate. She pushed the paper back. I didn't know. I swear, I know, I said. That's why you're getting mercy. Michael signed next. Slower. His hand shook. Mom, I'm sorry. You're not sorry. You're caught. I took the paper. Your signature protects Lily. That's the only reason you're not in handcuffs right now. Sarah refused. I won't sign. Then you leave. I stood. In handcuffs. Linda opened the door. 2 sheriff's deputies waited. They'd been in the kitchen, drinking coffee, waiting. Sarah Carter, Linda said, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, theft by deception, and elder financial exploitation. Sarah screamed. Preston tried to intervene. One deputy cuffed her, the other read rights. Mom, she shrieked as they led her out. Mom, please. I sat back down. Cut a piece of roast. Put it in my mouth. It tasted like ash. Jennifer was crying. Michael was staring at his plate. Eat, I said. It's your last meal as my children. They didn't eat. Atialon. Linda filed the charges Monday morning. Sarah's mugshot was online by noon. Her Chanel suit, smudged mascara, the look of a woman who'd been told no for the first time in her life. Michael's confession was leaked to the Sarasota Herald-Tribune by an anonymous source close to the family. The anonymous source was me, emailing from a burner account at the Georgia Library. Jennifer gave her deposition Wednesday. She cried. She apologized. She detailed every text, every Venmo, every time Sarah had said Mom's losing it. We need to take control. She was granted immunity. She left for Boulder that night, promising to send Lily a Christmas card. I told her not to bother. Lily moved into the Savannah duplex on Thursday. She called me from her new kitchen, crying, saying the downstairs tenant had brought her a pie. Grandma, they brought me pie. Accept it, I said. And learn their names. Good landlords know names. Friday, I drove to Florida one last time. Not to the beach house, to the lawyer's office, to the bank, to the courthouse. The beach house stayed rented to Mr. Chun. He'd signed a 5-year lease. His daughter was starting at UF in the fall. She wanted to be a lawyer. I told her to call Lily for advice. The Georgia farmhouse became my primary residence. I filed the paperwork, changed my address, forwarded my mail. Frank the Seagull stayed. I think he liked the country air. Michael entered rehab on Saturday. Court-ordered. 6 months inpatient at a facility in Naples. No phones. No visitors. Just therapy and accountability. He called me once. From intake. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. 4 minutes of crying. I saved it. But I didn't listen. Lily visited me Sunday. We baked cookies. She asked about the business. How I'd done it. How I'd hidden it all. I didn't hide it. I said, rolling dough. I just stopped announcing it. Why didn't you tell them about the properties? Because children who ask, how much will I get? Don't deserve to know how much there is. She nodded. Understood. She had Richard's wisdom. We finalized the trust on Monday. Linda brought the documents to the farmhouse. 12 properties. $3.7 million in equity. All transferred to the Carter Dynasty Trust. Beneficiaries: Lily Carter, 100%. Secondary beneficiary: the Alzheimer's Association of Georgia, upon Lily's death. You're erasing them, Linda said. I'm correcting the record. I signed each page. Sarah gets nothing. Michael gets nothing. Jennifer gets nothing. They chose debts over family. Let them live with it. And when they contest, they can't. I pointed to the clause. Mediation mandatory. Arbitrator, me. If they contest, they forfeit even the right to speak my name. Linda smiled. That single quote says, harsh. That's motherhood. I signed the last page. The harshest love of all. The final document was a letter, handwritten, 1 copy for each child. Linda would deliver them. To Sarah, Michael, and Jennifer, you asked for your inheritance early. You stole it. You sold it. You gambled it. You thought I was the house. But I was the land. You thought I was the money. But I was the mind that made it. You thought I was old. But old is just another word for patient. I have transferred everything to Lily. She is the only one who asked for nothing and received everything. If you contest this, know that I have video of every crime, every signature, every conspiracy. I will not use it unless you force me. Live your lives. Make your mistakes. But don't call me when you fall. I fell once. It took me 40 years to get up. I won't fall again. Margaret Linda mailed them Tuesday. Certified. Return receipt requested. Wednesday. Sarah called from jail. I didn't answer. She left a message. Mom, the lawyer says I can get out on bail. It's $50,000. Can you? I deleted it. Thursday. Michael called from rehab. I didn't answer. His message. I made you a photo album. In crafts. Of us. When I was little, I saved it. Didn't listen. Friday. Jennifer texted, Mom, I'm sorry. Can we talk? I blocked her number. Saturday. Lily brought her new girlfriend to meet me. A nice girl. Studying nursing. I liked her. Sunday. I sat on the Georgia porch and watched the sun set over fields I didn't own but felt more mine than any beach house ever had. The phone rang. Not a child. Mr. Chun. Mrs. Carter. My daughter got into law school. UF. Full ride. Congratulations. She said she wants to be like you. I smiled. Tell her to start by not trusting anyone who wants something from her. I will. He paused. And thank you. For the lease. For everything. I hung up. The sun dipped below the trees. Frank landed on the railing. It's done. I told him. He squawked. I know, I said. They'll be back. They always come back when the money runs out. But this time, I had a door that locked. A lawyer who answered. A safe that held secrets they'd never find. And I had Lily, who reminded me that not all fruit from a poison tree is rotten. I walked inside, opened the safe, pulled one last envelope. Inside, photos. Michael at 3, on my lap, at the first Patty's opening. Sarah at 5, wearing a chef's hat too big for her head. Jennifer at 2, covered in flour, laughing. I looked at them. Then I struck a match. The photos burned in the fireplace, curling into ash like memories that had never been real. I wasn't burning my children. I was burning the lie that they'd ever been mine. The house was quiet. The deeds were safe. The money was Lily's. And I was finally, at 69, a woman who owned her life. Not her children's debts, not their expectations. Just the ground beneath her feet. And that was enough.